If you're thinking of buying a Triumph TR6 but would like to road test it, please control yourself.
Alright, so the bottom patch is about as happy as I think it's going to get. And now I'm going to do the top. So if you recall, this guy had done this strip to cover over the whole seam at the top of the fender. So here's the rear, that's the front. So I gotta grind all these tack welds out and then chisel up along the edge of that. So, and then I'll, underneath is the flange here, so I'll have to recreate that as well. The first step is to get that off. Anyway, so 1 hour later, 45 minutes I guess, there is the edge. Got it chiseled off. So I'll sand that down and we will see how we want to attack this flange. Alright, so we're starting on the top flange. And so I kind of screwed it up as I'd said. Walk around here. Ugh. Jesus. Ugh. In that I had cut it, I thought I was cutting in the gap, but I wasn't. Which is stupid. I don't know what I was thinking. I should have just grazed it and then chiseled it off, like I did on the other side. Anyway. And then what I did on the other one, on the other fender, was I just cut this real close, created the flange. So now I'm going to have to get a fold going that kind of matches that and maintain that curve, because what I learned on the last one is it's got a slight curve inward as you go towards the front. It kind of does that. I don't know if you can see it going down there. You can't really. So anyway, so we'll get cracking on that. Alright, so I guess I was wrong. I had this sheet metal all along. A little surface rust, I'll clean it up. I'm using 20 gauge. Probably should use 18, but I'd bought it and didn't know any better, so I've been using 20. 32 thousandths versus 40 thousandths. I measured the steel. It's 40 thousandths on the car. Anyway, I digress. So I've got this template that I had made for the other strip, which you can see there on the other side. That's the passenger side. So yeah, I'll just reuse this template. I checked and it fits perfectly. Holes are good. So that's it. Neighbor Steve! I think I've figured out my plan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this flush in a straight pattern up until here and then angle it to this point. So it'll be a trapezoid. And I made a patch already, so I've got this cut out. So this is a 1/2 inch wide once I unroll it. So I'll weld it, it'll stick out a little bit. And I'll gas weld it on. The only thing I'm nervous about is whether the tip will burn through. It might, but we'll see. So that'll be thicker by about a 1/2 inch. It'll stick out by 1/4 inch, I should say. And then I will cut it to fit. And I'll re-weld the flange on that I'm going to make with the pattern that I've got. So because it'll be flat and sticking out, I'll be able to work that and make sure that I've got this top profile that I like, the curve, where the curve meets the flange. Like I said, this is the tip here where I cut it at an angle after I realized where I screwed up, so I might as well complete it. So we'll see how that looks. Okay, so here's the strip that I cut, and I know I cut it relatively straight, but it's got a bow in it. It's supposed to be straight from here. It's probably like 100 thousandths and 100 thousandths out at that end. So I think it just warped from the cutting, or stress relieved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little anvil, and I want it to be flat on this side, so I'm going to hammer all along this edge, and basically just hammer like this, and hammering up and down will flatten this out and hopefully make it bend opposite to the way it's currently bent. So I'll do that. Okay, so you can see that worked to some extent. It's pretty flat through here. I just need to do the opposite here. So I'll hammer in this section, and I will not do that on camera. I'm just going to keep iterating that process. Sorry for the nerd speak. And see if I can get that nice and flat. But it's working. Okay, so it's Sunday the 11th. I think I've got the piece all prepped up. I'm going to weld it in. Actually cleaning it and prepping it, obviously. It took a couple hours. I think welding it's only going to be a few. I may show a longer version of the video. Keep getting comments. So maybe I'll make two videos, a short one, a long one. Alright, so I'm going to get ready and weld it in. Okay, so I've got the patch in place, or the strip. It's not really a patch. The only part that I'm concerned about is the skinniness of this area. I'm going to see what happens here. I'm going to tack it about here, starting. I'm not going to tack at the end. I'll tack it as I go down. I'm really happy with this flushness. I've just got it held in place for the first tack, and then I'll let it float a little. And one little goof here. We'll see how that turns out. I think I can get rid of that. Alright, I'll start tacking. Okay, so there is the weld. I'll go and get a flashlight, check for, let's see there, is that a spot I need to redo right here? Check for any holes. This is the edge. I'm just going to cut that flush, so I'll inspect this area, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with it. I'll planish, sand, etc. I'll show that. Alright, so here we are, probably half dozen passes of the planishing spoon. I ran it once with the roll lock on the drill to get any high spots. There were a couple spots where I had to add rod and had to bring this down, so it's getting pretty smooth. So now I'm going to alternate between the body file and the hammer. Body file will find the high spots and the low spots. I'll bring up the low spots and smooth out the high spots. Okay, once again, thanks to generosity of some of the members of my local Triumph Club, I have a loaner Fender that I'm using for geometry. It's actually the passenger, but it'll do. Thank you, Craig. So you can see I've got a straight edge across here. That edge is more or less flat. Maybe a teeny gap, but I think that's mostly due to, well, maybe it's got a little gap, but I will strive to replicate that. You can see I hung it like a side of beef in Rocky. And I've got that curve almost what I want, but I'm wasting a lot of time. I don't want to waste time on this edge if it's not true. So I'm going to trim that as a straight shot from that tip to that juncture, and then I'll work that edge. And I took a carpenter's tool for making molding, crown molding and stuff, and that is the profile of the good Fender. So I'm going to try and match that with hammer and dolly. So I'm going to trim and then hammer and dolly. I'm just going to continue that. Okay, so I've taken a piece of tape, laid it across there. I've left a gap for about the thickness of the sheet metal, and it goes from there to here, and I've double checked it with my metal ruler, so it is indeed straight, and I'm going to trim that. I want to debate whether I'll use a cutting wheel or hand shears. We shall see. Alright, so I've opted for the hand shears. It's much more exact, and it's actually very easy. Got my left-handed hand shears. Sorry for the loud Pink Floyd. And I will continue that. Okay, so I got the flange cut out. I used my old template, just reversed. And it will go there, obviously. One thing I considered, I started to cut out this material. I traced the profile off the other panel, but I decided to leave this metal here. It'll make it easier to weld there with that extra mass, and I'll just cut it to shape later. So I'll tack this on and contemplate welding it tonight. Maybe I won't. We'll see.
A great deal more.